There are 7.5 billion humans in the world. We are identical by 99.99%. But what comprises the 0.01 difference? Let's find out.
On what is genetics. In the simplest definition, genetics is the study of heredity. It's the study of genes, genetic variation, and how the characteristics of living organisms are transmitted from one generation to another.
But how did genetics start? It began in the mid-19th century when Gregor Mendel, an Austrian monk, was performing extensive experiments on inheritance in genetics. His experiments with pea plants took him 8 years. During this time, Mendel grew over 10,000 pea plants, keeping track of progeny, number, and type. By doing this, he created the fundamental laws of inheritance. First law, the law of segregation, states that each inherited trait is defined by a gene pair. Second law, the law of independent assortment, states that the genes for different traits are sorted separately from one another. Lastly, the law of dominance states that an organism with alternate forms of gene will express the form that is dominant. In his time, Mendel's work and his law of inheritance were not appreciated. It was in 1900s that his discoveries were understood. Breakthrough discoveries after Mendel died.
Ernst Haeckel for the hereditary material that is found in the nucleus, Friedrich Miescher for the nucleic acid, Oswald Avery, Colin MacLeod, and McLean McCarthy discovered that DNA, not protein RNA, was responsible for genetic inheritance. James Watson and Francis Crick determined the DNA structure. Let's move on to the basic concept of gene inheritance. Genes are small sections of the DNA carrying the genetic information for a specific trait. Different forms of genes resulting from variations in the nucleic acids DNA are called alleles. Diploid organisms, those who reproduce sexually, receive a complete copy of an allele from each parent. Individuals receiving 2 copies of the same allele from their parents are considered homozygous, while those receiving different alleles from each parent are considered heterozygous. The alleles an individual has for a trait is called its genotype, which is usually expressed using a combination of uppercase and lowercase letters. The visible manifestation of the genotype is called the phenotype. These are the observable physical and behavioral traits of an organism. Now, not all alleles are created equally. In biology, alleles are classified into 2 main types, dominant or recessive alleles. In a Punnett square, the dominant allele is written using a capital letter, while the recessive allele is written in lowercase. This means that the dominant allele masks the other allele in the sequence. On the other hand, the recessive allele is the one being masked. So because of this, more often than not, the dominant allele is the one that is being expressed. When this happens, this is called the complete dominance. Certain times, the dominant allele isn't fully expressed and the dominant and the recessive alleles are mixed, creating a trait that is fully similar to either the dominant or recessive allele, but instead, something in between. This phenomenon is called incomplete dominance. The only time the recessive allele is expressed is when both the alleles are recessive, forming a homozygous recessive cell. As basic concepts in genetic inheritance have already been discussed, it's time to clear up common misconceptions regarding the topic. First on the list is all mutations are harmful. Not really. Mutation is irreversible, yes, but that doesn't mean that it is harmful all the time. Did you know 500,000 and 300 years ago, men were all lactose intolerant? Our species only mutated such that we are able to digest milk and other dairy products. This is one example of mutation that is for our benefit. Another common misconception is genes are variations of traits. No, actually, alleles are variants of genes and alleles determine your traits. For a certain trait, let's say hair color, there are specific genes in charge of determining hair color. These genes are essentially common to everyone. The only reason why people have different hair colors is that the alleles expressed in those genes differ depending on the traits passed on by the parents of an individual. This arises to another misconception wherein dominant traits are most commonly expressed in the population. For the third time, no. Dominant in genetics only means a certain trait is expressed over the recessive trait. We found statistics that show the grouping of the population and their respective blood types. By year 2016, blood type O is most common with 41% of the population, blood type A coming second at 32%, blood type B ranks third with 22%, and last is blood type AB, covering only 5% of the population. Blood type A and B are dominant traits, while AB is a codominant trait, but these three are less expressed than the recessive trait, blood type O. This goes against the idea of dominant traits being most commonly expressed within a population.
We Filipinos commonly experience this.
Friends, Justin back! Ano ba itong ginawa mo? Mano ka talaga sa daddy mo?
Oo. Parang kaya sa kanya.
Mano siya sa'yo?
Let's find ways to show how our parents' traits were passed to us.
This approach is called a pedigree analysis. In a pedigree chart, symbols are used to represent the members of a family. A square is used for males, while a circle is used for females. In some cases, a diamond is used for people with unknown or for reasons of confidentiality disguised gender. A shaded circle or square means that the individual expresses the trait. Those who do not express the trait are left unshaded. Roman numerals indicate which generation the individual is from, while numbers represent the order of birth within the generation.
If an
Own trait, but also the traits of generations before and after him. In this chart, John would be the square here, while his parents are above him since they are the older generation. We are looking specifically at one trait in this illustration, freckles, and since his mother has freckles the same as him, we shade both of their figures, indicating that these individuals express the trait. Now let's say John got married. There will be the start of the second generation. His kids would be placed under him, and again, whoever from his kids expresses the same trait would be shaded. This can go on for more generations and can even branch out to more complex branches depending on the details. Remember, a pedigree chart is not limited to only one family like in this case, but we can put also John's siblings' family, for example, and many more. As we can see, the symbol chart offers a visual presentation of the flow of traits from one person to another. It is a way of keeping track of certain characteristics throughout generations.
Let's find out what John's eye color would be if we say that his father is heterozygous for brown eyes, which means that he has one allele for brown eye and another allele for blue eye. For this example, let's use eye color. So brown eyes is big letter B and blue eyes is small letter b. Write big letter B and small letter b on the top of the Punnett square, and his mother is homozygous for blue eyes, so write two small letter b's on the first column. So we would multiply what is on top and what is on the left side. Ta-da! John has a 50% chance of having blue eyes. So the next time your parents tell you this,
Ano ka talaga sa daddy mo?
you know what to show them.